I'm very happy of noting that at least 2 students of last year's summer school are attending this seminar. And so, yes, I'm very happy to be here. And so the paper I'm going to present is about donut economics. And this paper is co-authored with Gianluca Gucciardi, who was a former student of mine and now is in Milano Bicocca. And so the attempt is to look for some empirical evidence using the donuts economics approach. And the purpose of this work is to provide a new assessment metric for the concept of a safe and just space for humanity as developed by, proposed by Keith Howard and represented as a donut. You have probably all heard about donut economics, so I will only briefly recap it. And as you know, the core idea is to combine the planetary boundaries as developed by John Rockstrom and colleagues that you can see in the slide more than a decade ago. And actually, a recent paper just came out in September, recalculating and showing the situation is much worse than it was in the previous one. And so to connect the planetary boundaries with some social floors, and so to combine the two within a donut, and so to have a space, a just and safe space to live in. So the motivation of our research, so the research question, so I think I can skip that. I can be very quick on that because you know about that. And we have shortfalls, so overshoots, the red areas, and inside the green circle, we have so the social foundation, the ecological ceilings, and the idea is that countries or region should aim at living within the donut. And so the motivation, the research question of our paper is to answer this question: does a country live in the donut? According to Kay Draver's approach, the answer is yes, only if all thresholds are met for each dimension. Now, some relative assessments have been done by considering the percentage of dimension in which a country respects the thresholds. And so to explain the reasons for this paper, so let's consider this fictional example. And consider like 3 countries, and we have 3 variables, X, Y, and Z, with 3 performances. So those numbers, it doesn't matter which unit of measure we consider. And in this case, we have a threshold, which is defined at 900. You can see, since this is those are social criteria, 3 countries are above the 4 and 1 country is below. In this case, in this example, Spain. Then we can consider another variable, Y. And the threshold, which is considered, is 160. So suppose just a hypothetical example. And then again, you will see that only Spain in this case is above the thresholds, while the other 2 countries are below. So they don't meet the social floor. And again, you can have this other one where the threshold is 6. We have 2 countries meeting the criterion, the thresholds, and the other 2 not. And so, how can we aggregate that? And of course, according to the more strong criteria, none of them live in the donut. And again, we can consider the percentage of met criteria, met thresholds, and we will have that France, so those figures. So Portugal and Germany are rather poor, and France and Spain perform better. And this is despite France performing very poor on indicator Y. And at the same time, Germany is rather close, in this example, to the respective thresholds. So the question arises, who is closer to live within the donut, Germany or France? And so our main question is that according to the matrix used so far, no consideration is taken of proximity. So the purpose of this paper is try to find a metric that also considers proximity. So and the count, so those are two references. And so what do O'Neill and colleague and Fanning and colleague do in these two papers? They just standardized with respect to the threshold. They say the threshold is equal to 1, and then they have those three the standardized indicators. And so one possible answer to our question is just to take the arithmetic mean. So we can aggregate the standardized values using the arithmetic mean, or we can use the geometric mean. So depending on the aggregation that we choose, we can we can assess or use a metric to assess whether a country lives in the donut or not. So for instance, in this case, we have Germany, which is above the threshold, both if we aggregate using the arithmetic mean or the geometric mean, because the threshold is 1 and Germany is above in both cases. And France, in this case, is below in both cases, just because this very poor performance in Y is so the result is due to this. And if you look at Portugal, if we aggregate through arithmetic mean, we have that Portugal is considered to be in the donut, but if you aggregate by the geometric mean, due to the very poor performance in indicator Z, we can consider it below the threshold. So the aims of the research is to take into account the issue of the distance from the thresholds. And also, our idea is to introduce a less strict metric and see what is the empirical assessment using a less strict metric. And so this is the main question. So despite using a weaker metric, a weaker assessment criteria, will we find countries meeting the thresholds given by our relaxed metric? Because so far, the assessment is that no country lives within the donut. So, is it everything clear so far? So feel free to interrupt me and ask questions. Okay, so let's. Okay, thank you very much. And so let's go a bit more into the methodology. So our idea is to try to have a robust approach to composite indicators. And so the idea is to build many composite indicators rather than a single one. So usually we one indicator, one composite indicator is built, and then robustness analysis is performed. Our approach is a bit the reverse. We try to build many composite indicators using different methods and the different normalization and different aggregation rules for the indicators. And so, for instance, if we take the previous example, we can calculate the border score for all the indicators that we had that previously had, and then we can see that thresholds are 2, 4, and 3, and so we will get the border scores, and then we can have the arithmetic mean and the geometric mean, and we calculate the arithmetic mean of the threshold and the geometric mean of the thresholds. And so in bold are those who are those countries who are above the thresholds. And then we can also maybe aggregate, normalize using the distance from the best performance. In this case, best performer is Portugal, so its value is 1. And then again, we normalize for all indicators, and we get those results. And again, we can, so after that, we calculated those two those two normalization methods. We can aggregate. Now we can aggregate, and in this case, in the first column, we aggregate. We have the arithmetic mean of the indicators standardized according to the ratio with respect to the thresholds. And in the second column here, I don't know whether you can see the arrow. You can, it is the rankings according to the normalization, use the ratio with respect to the thresholds and the geometric mean, and so on. So we can build all the many possible rankings depending on the method. So what is important to stress is that the threshold value corresponds really to the thresholds, is a ranking, but all countries above the rank of the threshold also meet the thresholds. So after this, after calculating many possible rankings, in this simple example, we have only 6 rankings. We can take some statistics. So we can take what the median rank of part of our units are, and we can calculate the range, the best and the worst. And we can compare it with just the counting, the metric which is based on counting how many criteria are met. And so we will see, we classify as broadly within the donut if the country median rank is smaller than the threshold median rank, and so on. But this is not important in this here. And so we can give some assessment, which is clearly a different metrics as respect to what is suggested by the paper of Flanagan and colleagues. But we will see it better when we apply, when I show our results. So I hope I was clear enough. And so normalization methods, we used 5 of the most used normalization methods: zeta score, min max, distance from the best performance, average performance, and the border score. Then we used 2 systems of weighting, 1 equal weight for dimensions, and and then principal component factor analysis. And then we aggregated like both either the linear additive average or geometric average. Now, I a very important point is to which indicators we applied those calculations. So our idea was to separate the two dimensions. From one side, the planetary boundaries, and from the other side, the social floors, the social foundations. And of course, this means violating strong sustainability, if you want, or so we allowed for some compensation among the indicators. And so, of course, we are aware of that. And for this reason, we try to mitigate this problem by doing robustness, by adopting a robustness approach. And so we calculated 32 composite indicators and thresholds, 16 for social foundation and 16 for planetary boundary. And then an advantage of this approach is that it's easier to communicate, because if you have to compare countries and just compare the data of the countries, it is somehow easy to make a comparison, a pairwise comparison of the data, but it becomes much more difficult if we want to compare several countries. So in a sense, one advantage of our proposal is that it is also easier to communicate. And so the data, we didn't have, we just took the data that are already used in the previous literature, because our focus was just to compare our results with the results of the two papers that we mentioned. So we exactly use their indicators. So we don't discuss at all the indicators, just because of that. And we focused on 81 countries because we don't want to input like missing data. And the data, the period was, the year was 2015. So the findings. And you can see in this table, on the x-axis, you have the ranks, and on the y-axis, and on the x-axis, you have the countries. For instance, this is Norway. And the black dot is the median rank. And the gray bar, like this, is the range, the best and the worst rank. We can have also for the threshold, this orange line at 26 is the median rank of the threshold, and the light orange color delimitate the worst and the best rank. So each of us is free to use the assessment that she or he prefer. For instance, we can say the country is in the dominant if the median, if the worst performance is better than the best performance of the plausible of the thresholds, and so on. Or if the median rank is better than is higher than this than the best possible rank of the thresholds, and so on. And so we can think this as just area, and these are shortfall area. And so we did this for the society, we did this for the natural environment, and of course, this is for the planetary boundaries, this is a safe area, and this is an overshoot area. And I hope it's always difficult to explain those issue in composite indicators, and I hope I was clear, but please interrupt me for any questions. So now I will move to representations of the results. And this is why also the planetary boundaries are transgressed for those countries, and the social boundaries are transgressed for those countries, and both boundaries are transgressed, and then you will see a united picture. So in the red countries where both boundaries are transgressed, and so you can see. And the conclusion, the result, is that no countries fall within both, within the donuts, okay? Not according to the strict nor to the broad definition. And the gray ones are the countries for which we have missing data. And about 26 countries are in the safe environmental area, about 20 countries are in the safe social area. And but this depends very much on which criterion one decide to use. And then we did some what-if analysis. So what is the increased factors in the social composite indicators so that at least one country meets both thresholds? And we just had a look to the 26 countries already meeting the environmental ceilings. And we can see that Jordan is the closer. And for instance, no, it's the threshold value is 0.7071. Oh, sorry, I forgot to say that we took, of course, only one indicator, which is the one that we get by using min-max normalization, equal weighting, and linear aggregation, also because this is the closest one to the median. And then we can see that the increased factor, we should increase Jordan performances by 15% to meet both indicators. So we should increase the performances of Jordan by this percent. And so you can see that in many cases, even the top 26 countries, you have to increase a lot the social composite. And we did something similar for the 20 countries. So in this case, we ask how much should we decrease to avoid the overshooting. And we have also in these cases rather big decrease factors. And so the concluding remarks, the takeaways, as no country lives within the donut, even with a less strict assessment metric that allows for compensation. So even if the first key point. And so partial compensation in this case is not a big problem. How many countries meet the composite thresholds? Very few. And the effort to get into the safe space is rather high. A somehow similar approach is also by this paper applied to the European countries. Okay, so more or less I've finished. So then we also did some other analysis, but I will skip them here.
All right, thank you.
I hope I was on time.
No, you have plenty of time. So now we have a lot of time for comments, questions. Does anybody have anything? So Tommaso, with the results, the second results with the countries that were not, that needed to decrease, what suggestions, for example, Ireland was the closest. what suggestions in the area of the donut would get them to where they needed to be to get into the safe zone?
Yeah, you mean this picture, this
Yes.
line?
Yes.
Yeah, the actual the indicator, the composite indicator for the planetary boundaries in this case is 0.3 for Ireland, for instance. But the threshold value is 0.13, say. And so for Ireland should decrease something in the donut to up to a point from for going from 0.3 to 0.1, say. And of course, it is difficult to assess exactly what this figure says. But so and also we, in another part of the paper, I don't know whether I have the slide here, we also consider also countries that don't meet that are outside the donut for both composite indicators, but still are rather close. And one example, as a very famous example, is Costa Rica. Costa Rica is apparently good, I mean, rather close to both. So it's difficult really to say what this means. However, I mean, the decrease factors are rather high. And so in general, no, because that, so it's the purpose of the paper is that maybe we are too severe in judging countries by only counting how many indicators fall within the donut. So what if you are less severe and we allow for some compensation? Maybe the picture is better. So my main aim was to answer this question. And the answer is no. Even if you are more nice, even if apply a very generous benefit of the doubt, we are in big troubles, even if we allow for compensation and so on. So in a sense, the situation is even worse than what is depicted by O'Neill and by Andrew Fanning and by Kate Raworth. And of course, yes, now the next steps are adding indicators to the several dimensions, because so far the Kate approach has been developed only considering one indicators for each theme, for each dimension. And I think this is rather poor, because I mean, for life, so for all of these themes can be proxied by several indicators. So like as the SDGs, we have many indicators for each SDG. And so it would be, we are collecting some data for extending also the number of the countries and trying to make the analysis even more robust, just by adding indicators and steering them again and mixing them and see what will happen after, again, in this spirit. No, it's maybe we just took wrong indicators, and maybe if you take other indicators, maybe a country can score better. And so we try to yeah, this is a robustness exercise. Lucas attended our school, was also attended Hello, Lucas. We
Hi.
organize.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. I was just wondering, like, I mean, this is pretty pessimistic, I suppose. Also, I mean, also in regard to policy making, maybe I mean there are like, for example, Amsterdam, who apply the concept on the city. So is it maybe possible to make a micro analysis, or to say, okay, this and these cities, they are quite doing quite good, and maybe we can take it as a role model. We should develop these and these cities or regions. Maybe is it another approach that would be possible?
Yes, of course, yes, because the local. Our idea was also to uh, develop something similar to some region, no? And to see the performances of the region. But of course, this is very macro approach. So the best for policymaker, the best approach would be, I mean, to go deep into problems, no? Because it's when we have composite indicators, we, in a sense, we lose information because we collapse so many information in a few figures. So of course, you are definitely right. Maybe this is completely almost useful for useless for policymaker. It only says that the the fever is very high, and maybe we don't need any other evidence that the fever is very high. Uh, and so, but yes, of course, Amsterdam and how to solve that, because even if you know that what the area, what are the weakest area, still you have to find the correlations between the indicators, and also, yes, to find a kind of solutions. And in a sense, solutions are very simple, but we need the political will to accept them. And but yeah, it's in a sense, it's so the recipes are not difficult to envision. So the problem is whether we are willing to accept them. Now, for instance, now it is clear that the problem is that is not that we lack energy, but we have too much energy. So are we willing to accept that we have too much energy? Because the more energy we have, the more we are able to impact on the environment. And so we should reduce our energy consumption. And sustainability doesn't go through electric vehicles, but to increase public transports, carpooling, and so on, just to make an example. No? And so in a sense, we have so many solutions. But my personal opinion is that we need to, as a society, we need to accept them. No? And so I will develop more if I don't know if there are other questions.
Are there other questions or comments?
There is something in the chat.
So thank you for the great talk.
Okay. No, too good.
Tommaso, I got one more question. With regard to these indicators, it seems to me as you play around with the robustness of which indicators and whatnot, that you're going to see a lot of key differences. Would it make sense to maybe split the countries into different categories based on the indicators?
No, I didn't get it completely.
So we have these indicators. Some of the indicators would seem like they would be valid for let's say more agricultural type country.
Yeah, of course. Yes, I'm very sorry. I apologize. When I was young, when I was attending the first meeting of ecological economics, when I met John, I think my first participation in an ecological economic conference, unfortunately, was last century. because this was 1998 in Geneva, and then I met John in Porto Venere. So at that time, I was young, and I was able to make papers with many questions. Then everyone told me, one paper, one question, one paper, one paper, one question, no more than one question per paper, no, which is horrible, because at the same time, it is the way we do research, and because maybe we don't have time. So if there is one clear question and then it's answered, and that's it. It's better to read. Yes, my approach. I participated with many groups. For instance, an Italian National Statistical Office, a huge and long discussion about which indicators. I'm very skeptical about that, no, because of course there are some indicators who fit better one country and some other with two other countries. But so my idea with robustness is that no matter which indicators we take, if a country is a good performer, the country will perform more or less good. And if a country is poor performer, the country will perform more or less bad. And so in a sense, this is why we want to increase the number of indicators. And so we can apply the benefit of the doubt approach. So maybe we can have like 4 indicators in sanitation. And then we can take for each country the indicator that for which that country scores best. And this is the classical benefit of the doubt. And so, okay, this country is very poor in these indicators, so don't consider it, and we consider another one. And so this is the logic of the benefit of the doubt that I think fits your question. No? And I take the best indicator for each country. And let's see what happens. Does this country increase its relative position to the others? Is this country able to meet the thresholds or not? Did I answer?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Yeah, because we lost a lot of time in fighting about which is the best indicator. But actually, there are proxies, no, and even the concept is not very well defined, and so all proxies are valid in a sense. No? And we can. So that this idea is just to steer, as I said before. Let's steer and let's see what happens. But if the result is always the same, or as you can see, for instance, this is not very for instance, I think this maybe it's Argentina or Spain. You can see. For Spain, the range is wide, is very wide, depending on the measure that we use. But for other countries, for this country, for instance, I don't know, you can see. But anyway, so for Norway, the possible range is very low. And so this is a bit the approach. So as a scholar, I give the range, and then the policymaker or the public will judge using her own criteria.
There's a couple questions in the chat. First from Eric. Your title poses the question on unsolvable conflict. Your research seems to support the idea that there are trade-offs between environmental ceilings and social foundations. Is there any evidence for optimism?
Yes, for some countries. I think I forgot to put in the slide. But so there are some countries which are somehow close. And so in a sense, yes, yeah. The answer to my title is, yes, it's apparently is unsolvable. But again, it depends on what we are willing to accept as a society. Now, are we willing to accept a reduction in energy use given the same amount of well-being? For instance, now I have a few projects on the issue of plant obsolescence. Or suppose that we have a law for which the concentration for detergents, for liquid detergent, must double. So the same truck or half of the truck will deliver the same value. So theoretically, if you are able to exploit the increase in efficiency of fighting planet obsolescence and so on, we would be able to work less. In this case, the driver of the truck would be able to drive half of the time because and they're consuming half of the gasoline, and maybe in the spare time he will go fishing, or and so, but he will not have more income to, and so but in general, so we have the Gibbons effect, but so rebound effects, but so it depends. But the issue is, are we willing to have a mobile phone that lasts for 6 years rather than 3 years? So, or suppose, for instance, just the sustainable transportation. So, for instance, in my town, Pisa, there are many people that commute and from many other cities come to Pisa every day. And there are only single drivers car. So suppose that you have just a regulation that during peak hours, cars are not allowed unless there are at least 2 passengers in the car. So this, of course, will drastically reduce the traffic during peak hours. And at the same time, the well-being is not radically changed because you have so many apps, and then we can just go to jog with our neighbor or just pick up someone on our street. So in a sense, I'm very optimistic because there are so many solutions that for reducing our impact without harming or reducing our well-being, unless we consider that well-being is driving alone in the car. And also, yeah,
there's another question from Stephen. Are we sacrificing clarity on a country's performance in order to be able to rank more effectively? And does this risk undermining the usefulness of the indicators for a country's own responsibility to achieve within the donut approach?
Yeah, I will do an example using TripAdvisors, for instance. Or so when we want to choose a restaurant or anything else, we have usually we rank the restaurants by stars. And then when we go, then we look inside them. So in a sense, we need both, of course. I'm not telling that we just have to abandon the looking at single indicators. On the contrary, I say that we need to look at as many indicators as possible, and then we need to tackle each problem. So in a sense, we need both kind of indicators, general indicators, which is not too general, which is about the health, general health, and then I have to go deeper. So of course, this is not at all sufficient, and it can help to compare countries. This for sure. So the main purpose is to compare countries in an easier way. No, it's not the main, but it's the other effect of this kind of analysis. Because of course we cannot have a single indicators, but at the same time it's very difficult to have many indicators, to look at 70 indicators. So first of all, we have to find kind of compromise, which, however, doesn't, as I said, imply that we forget the rest. I hope did I answer, I guess. Stephen, are you happy with this answer?
Yeah, no, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer.
All right. Any
Yeah.
last questions or anything?
And then I would like to add a very short comment on sustainability and sustainable development. So what do we aim at? Because I am really a bit, when we read the Brundtland report, in the third row, it is written that it is explained. So it says that it contains two key concepts. First one is the satisfaction of basic needs of the poor, to which overriding priority should be given. And the second one, that we have to be aware of the many limitations and that technology and society imposes on the ability of the environment to satisfy our needs. So, I mean, my reading of Brundtland definition is not about the future, is not about intergenerational equity, is not about compromise between the three dimensions, 3, 4, 5, or whatever. But this Brundtland report is about basic needs. And indeed, in Agenda 2030, the first goal, of course, they say they are all equal, they have the same importance and so on. But at the same time, the first goal is zero poverty. The second one is no hunger, and so on. So the first goals are about basic needs. And so I think it's a very hypocritical just to focus on the issue of duration. We want durable, the development durable, something that long-lasting. But long-lasting what? So in a sense, despite many criticisms that have been raised against the Brundtland report, just in a sense, I discovered that reading it with my students of the Sustainable Development course, that it is much more radical than we are used to think about. No, and maybe it's not very palatable to say that the development is about eradicating poverty. And so, again, for optimism for what? For what should we aim? And if the issue is eradicating poverty without both in the present and in the future, rather than having a hierarchical view, where, of course, we have to compromise, but we have nature, so economy, which is contained in society and contained in nature. And if we have this hierarchical view, it's much better, it's much easier. So in a sense, again, are we willing to accept those hierarchical dependencies or not? Are we willing to accept that the main goal of development is eradicating poverty, or are we happy with our fancy stories about biofuels and nuclear power or whatever very miracle technologies that will save us?
Okay. Well, with that, we will say thank you very much. The presentation was excellent and as always, very thought-provoking. And we can't thank you enough for doing this. And want to thank everybody for attending. Our next thing that we'll have for the US Society is something new. December 12th is a book club. So please be on the lookout for advertisements for that, and hopefully everyone can participate in that. But once again, thank you, Tommaso. We really appreciate it and can't thank you enough.
No, I can't thank you enough, you, for being here. And so I'm really, really happy. And yeah, it is a real great initiative, this series of seminars. Luckily, this is one of the few good effects of COVID, that we learn how to also to contact and to exchange and distance. So thank you very, very much, and congratulations for this great initiative. And I encourage anyone who has any comments to send me and use my email, which is exactly as my name, Tommaso.Luzzati, only one S, not two, and double M. And maybe I can put here in the chat. And also, if you Google me, you will find it. And also, yes, and okay, again, very, very thank you.
And be on the lookout for the summer school.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Also, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Ciao.
Ciao, bye, Adam. Bye, Adam. Bye.
Ciao, grazie.
Ciao, Adam. Adam.
Sì.
Yeah, I went to your presentation, to Tiziano presentation. I hope that Tiziano gave you all the comments that I gave